Hi, my name is Wilna and I'm so excited to bring you the first new series of 2014 called Inspired. Inspired is a series that will happen 1 week out of every month, where we will be telling our stories through art and design. And we also have a mood board that we're going to work with every month, and this is the mood board for January, and you can see how lovely it is. And there's so much to it, and I was so inspired to work with it. So for the first project of 2014, I thought to really make something special, and I'm going to be making a mini album. And this is the first video of 2 where I will show you how to make this mini album. And in the first video we will be making the cover and the binding, and in the second video I will show you how to make the pages and how to put it all together. So without further ado, let's get started. Right, so for the covers, the back and front cover, I bought these little frames from Michael's, and they are in the dollar bin. I think I paid $1.50 for every frame, so it's very cheap to do. And we are just going to go ahead and decorate them. So start off by painting your frames with Mod Podge, and you can see I really laid it on thick. So just go ahead and a sponge brush works wonderful. And I think why I love it also is because I usually buy a big pack of it, and after a couple of uses you can just throw it away because they do tend to get hard. So just layer some Mod Podge, and then I'm using an old book and tearing out the pages, and I'm just going to add the paper to the frames. And there's no rhyme or reason to where I'm adding it. I'm just like a little collage, just adding it to the frames. Right, I'm just speeding it up really quick here so that you can just see my process without the boredom of it, because it's not very exciting. I'm adding some Mod Podge over the paper again and using my fingers to smooth it out a little. I'm not too concerned if the paper crinkles, because that's part of the texture, and it's just something that you will see how beautiful it works with the whole thing later on. You can also see I'm cutting just into the edges so that you can fold it nicely, because we are going to be cutting our edges clean later on. I always imagine how wonderful it would have been if I can work this fast in real life, and I think I've said it just as many times. So I'm doing 2, one for the back and one for the front. And that's the reason why I love the sponge brush, because you can just push it on the paper and it squeezes out a little bit more Mod Podge. So now I'm using my embossing tool to dry it, and Mod Podge dries fantastic with a heat embossing tool, and it takes so quick to dry. So now when it's dry, I'm going to cut around the edges with a craft knife. Just be careful. I did hurt myself, which is not uncommon for me, but I poked myself with a it's almost like a pointy thing into my thumb, and it's still hurting. Also, you will see if you watch my videos a lot that I'm actually videoing with a light today, just because it's so cold in North America, and in Saskatchewan we don't have that much light in winter. So I was a little concerned that I'm going to run out of light time, so I just decided to add a light with. So there, one frame is relatively clean. If you want to make it even neater than this, I suggest that you take sandpaper and just sand around the edges of your frame, and that will make it really smooth and neat. And you can even, if you have enough time, just add an extra layer of Mod Podge. I wish I had time to do it, but unfortunately I was on a schedule. So after you finished the cutting, you take gesso and we're going to be painting. So I'm taking a very broad brush and I'm just painting the frames. So what I haven't mentioned before is that the frames are 8 by 8 inches. So that's a really lovely big size for a frame and a mini album. So this is how I painted the covers. And luckily I had two, because the first time my video wasn't recording. So I'm taking grey and lots of water and I'm just painting around the edges. And then I'm adding pink just further on the frame. It's very light, it's very subtle. Of course you can make it any color, and you can even use gelatos. That also will work wonderful, but for some reason I decided to use watercolors. So I think a few things. The gesso and the Mod Podge really is like a sealant, so you know your paper won't crinkle more than usual, and the gesso is a lovely base to work on. So that's a good tip to remember. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the insides of our little frame. So while your watercolors is drying, you can start making the inside pieces of the frames. Because I'm going to be using some resin in the middle of the frames, I decided it's necessary that whatever is on that white piece of paper should be adhered very solidly. So that's why I'm laying down the double-sided tape so close to each other. And I'm going to add the photograph for the front and just little pieces of embellishments. Right, so I'm really forwarding it again really quick. That piece of paper comes from Crate Paper's new Valentine collection, which is lovely. And I'm just going to add a piece at the bottom and top, and then I'm just going to trim it. And then on the other piece I'm just going to add, it's going to be very plain because it's just the last page. And I wanted to add a heart, but I didn't want it to look too Valentine-ish because it's not a Valentine album. And while we're on that topic, this is all about my family. So I decided, because the theme for this month is family, I decided to do a little album of things that I pray for my family and what I would see happening in the family. And that Made in Africa is a little title that I hand wrote it, and then I made it into a cut file. And if you're wondering how to do it, then I suggest you watch the last video that I did for In the Mood to Scrap, where I show you step by step how to handwrite a title and make it into a cut file. So I did quite a bit of handwriting titles for this album because I wanted every aspect that I'm thinking through, I made it into a title. And you will also see that the Africa is spelled with a K, because in Afrikaans we spell Africa, we say Africa and then we spell it with a K. So all 5 of us were made in Africa, so it's quite special. Right, next we're going to add some texture to our frames, and I'm going to do it with a light molding paste and this cute stencil by Heidi Swap. So it's so simple. You just hold it down really well and spread over the molding paste, and it works perfectly. It's a wonderful little trick. If you want to know more how to use molding paste on pages, there's a whole chapter in my art class 1 where I just did stuff like this, which is amazing. Now technically I should have just cleaned the stencil and then added the heart part, but of course I'm shortcutting the shortcut, and that's why some of the hearts didn't work nicely as it should, but that's okay. And those stars were inspired by the mood board, where there's a page where there's just lots of stars. Also the colors were inspired by the mood board, the grays and pinks and tone on tone. So there's so many things that were inspired by the mood board, and also the splashes of red. Right, now I'm just going to add those pieces to the middle of the frame by just bending those little black things back, and I'm just careful because my molding paste is still wet and I don't want to squish it. So, but that's okay because molding paste do dry quickly, and the other thing is I want to add my resin so that it can dry. So right, I'm using the Envirotex pour on varnish, and I have a cup and a craft stick, and I think it's important just to mention that these utilities that you use or tools, you just want to throw them away. So a paper cup will work, maybe a paper spoon, not a paper spoon, a plastic spoon, so you can measure, because you need equal measure of both liquids, otherwise it will not dry right. So I was carefully measuring there, and now I'm just going to take a craft stick and just stir it really well, and then I'm going to pour it and I'm going to pour a little bit more on the Made in Africa part than I am on the back one. And it's amazing how much you can still get out of it when you use that stick. This is fun, and I'm telling you, I've been doing this to my mini albums for years, almost a decade. So now you just want to move it around so that the liquid goes into all the corners, and then you want to let it dry for at least 24 hours. And if you are very astute and a Sherlock Holmes, then you will realize that I have 2 of the same covers, because I wanted to try it out before I actually made it, just to make sure everything works, and because I filmed this in one day, so I didn't have 24 hours for it to dry. So my front cover was duplicated. Right, now you want to take a 12 by 12 inch piece of paper, and then you want to take your ruler and mark 1 inch lines on it. You can see that I cut mine the length of my mini album, and I will give you those measurements in millimeters, because millimeters is such an accurate measure. I think it's 192 millimeters high and then 12 inches wide. And that ruler is exactly 1 inch thick, so I just placed it and drew the line. And then you want to go ahead and just fold the paper on exactly those lines, and I'll show you how to do that easily. So the lines are 1 inch wide, and then you just want to fold it like that. So I'm just grabbing my bone folder, and that works wonderful. But just be sure to work rather accurately. I'm not someone at all that works very accurately, especially not with art, but in binding a mini album, you want it to be as neatly as possible, otherwise it just looks sloppy. And this album, if you do this properly, you won't be sorry. So it's 192 millimeters, how long it is. And that's when you use those specific little frames by Michaels that I bought from Michaels. Also, you need 12 specific 12 folds, so that's so that's why a 12-inch page works perfectly for this, because you need 12 folds. So one will go this way. Now you're going to fold a concertina, and again, just be very careful, make sure that you fold it right so that it doesn't go all skew on you. I don't know what the English word is for that, but anyway, I think you know exactly what I mean. So after you've done that, then you have a little concertina like that. So that's perfect. And now we want to adhere it to our front cover, and you're going to see I'm going to take 2 pieces, square them up nicely, and then on the inside I'm going to take a staple gun and I'm just going to staple it. Now this is a wonderful tool to have. You can also use hot glue if you don't have a staple gun, but I must warn you, the staple gun makes a big noise. So take 2, fold them together, turn your paper around, and then you want to staple it. Just square it up off nicely. There you go. And there's your front covers, and you have your spine. So in the next video, I will show you how we are going to make the inside pages and how we're going to put the album together.